the extraterrestrial vehicles, presence of the ETs. That is the biggest secret in the known recorded history of Earth. And the organization keeping it secret is global.
Man-made UFO technology was derived from the technology we learned from the aliens. You're saying 70-80% of what we see is actually that man-made UFO.
October 1954 is the date that we mastered gravity control. And same thing with all of the abductions. Those have been man-made, staged events for their psychological warfare value.
Your latest announcement, your disclosure project, Intelligence Archive, 34 years of your work. What is in there and why is it important now that the public can access it?
It's an enormous collection of intelligence, and it really unpacks the entire mystery.
I think a lot of people need to really start opening their eyes because a great scientist is always questioning things.
The good news for everyone, we already have all the solutions. The solution to pollution, poverty, but they want the paradise to be under their control and based on conflict and war.
If they could provide free energy for everyone in the world, why wouldn't they do that, Stephen?
It is about raw geopolitical power and money. That coming out means the end of all public utilities. More than $1,000 trillion in assets. Geopolitically would change the face of the earth. Science in itself is neutral, but what do men do with it?
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Stephen Greer, the researcher, medical doctor, and leading authority on the subject of UFOs. In 1993, you founded the Disclosure Project in order to make public the U.S. government's knowledge of UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence and push for the amnesty of government whistleblowers. Since then, you have provided briefings for sitting U.S. presidents alongside senior government officials across the globe. You've written 5 books and produced a number of high-profile documentaries regarding extraterrestrial life, government cover-ups, and detailed stories of close encounters. You ultimately believe there is a highly secretive and powerful international cabal that is misusing this extraterrestrial technology instead of using it to provide free energy to the world. Dr. Greer, welcome back to London Real.
Good to be with you and good to see you again.
Great to have you here. I wanted to jump in and talk about, your latest announcement, which is your Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, 34 years of your work that is now online and searchable. I was wondering if you could tell us more about that, because I believe it's all of your research, evidence from military and government contract whistleblowers, the whole nine. What is in there and why is it important now that the public can access it?
Well, I will tell people that if the Congress were to hold hearings on this subject for a year, from 9 in the morning till 5 p.m., there'd be less testimony and less information than what we just released. That is a fact. One of the reasons I put it together is about 3 years ago, senior people with the Senate Intelligence Committee asked me to help them get to the bottom of this. And I went into a SCIF, which is a secure compartmented information facility, and gave them an initial briefing. And they said, well, what more do you have? So we have everything. I have 760 whistleblowers, and we have 120 on camera with their credentials. And we have 150 plus black sites that are operational or have been operational on this issue. So they said, well, we need to get that. So these were all in my files. They were digitized. And so initially, they thought they would get the funding to put about 30 people together to create the master digitized intelligence file on the subject. They couldn't do that, so we did it ourselves. So it's cost us about $500,000 and about 2 or 3 years putting this together. But it's everything we've collected in 34 years. So it's a huge archive dump of intelligence. And you just go into one section, government documents. It's thousands of pages of government documents. And they're organized by government, Great Britain, United States, Canada. And I mean, there's smoking guns in there. So if you look at the witness testimony, I think we have like 120 named witnesses from military and corporate in there. And these are direct witnesses. These are not secondhand like the Senate. The House Oversight Committee had some people who were mostly secondhand people, except for pilots. We have many pilot encounters, much more important than the Tic Tac and others that are better documented. So it's an enormous collection of intelligence, evidence, and it really unpacks the entire mystery going back to the 40s, at least, or before.
Wow. Correct me if I'm wrong. I seem to recall in our last conversation that you said you had some documents that you were holding maybe as insurance on your life, that people knew that if something happened to you, that they would be released. First of all, am I recalling that correctly? Do you still hold those documents? And why are those so sensitive that it could potentially keep you alive?
Well, yes. I mean, you can only imagine having met with over 1,000 whistleblowers over the years. Now, there's 760 of them named in this archive, but the archive to the public that you'll see is heavily redacted for people's personal information. Now, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee and House Oversight have received the unredacted material. Now, what no one has received is the files you're referring to. And these are the most sensitive files that we have kept, as we call it, a dead man trigger, away from anybody that would be released if I were to be killed, what have you. And I was advised to do that in the 1990s. So that file keeps changing. So, for example, there's an entire team of people in the process of defecting from the upper echelons of these covert programs. They're talking about perhaps doing what they call a catastrophic disclosure, where they would just release to me and to the public video footage of the retrievals of ET craft and the downing of other craft and the reverse engineered craft that they test out at the black sites out west. Now, just before I was critically injured in October, I don't know if you know that. I was almost killed. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, it's not important. I'm okay now. But
I would say it is actually very important, Dr. Greer. We spoke in September, so I would have missed that.
This was in October.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was an accident. It was a strange accident. But at any rate.
Can you tell us more?
Oh, well, I mean, I was mountain biking and it appears someone tampered with the seat and the seat snapped off at high speed and my left foot came off and my two bones in my left leg were in the air and open fractures and my left shoulder was ripped off and my abdomen was torn open. So, I had 4 surgeries in 3 months, but I'm back. I mean, I'm, kind of back in the gym and back hiking. So it's been 7 months of rehab, but, here we go. It's been a story of my life, but, it happened 30 days after I came back from a black site where I was on a classified helicopter over 2 sites where this team who wants to come forward have electromagnetic pulse weapons where they target both the ET craft and test the man-made UFOs. So some of this information with names redacted is also in this file and also photos and videos of these black sites. Now, the new video that I took when I was in the chopper has not been released. I have given it to the Senate Intelligence Committee. So they didn't even know of these sites, by the way. They had no idea they existed. So
they're in America, I assume.
Yes, they're in the deserts.
Yeah.
And by the way, Ben Rich was right. Before he died, he told James Goodall, the famous aerospace historian, that the real action isn't at Area 51. It's out in the desert with the Lockheed Skunk Works and some other facilities. That's where I was. So I was over those facilities, and I actually have a great video of the underground opening where the man-made UFOs come out, and then they're tested by these electromagnetic pulse. They're these huge generators. People know electromagnetic pulse is what you get from an atomic explosion or nuclear. But we have been able to create those separate from the atomic explosion itself. Now, those are illegal under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but they're used all the time. And some are portable. They're on aircraft, satellites, fixed. At this place, I saw multiple of them, and they were spaced around where we would put up, say, a Lockheed aircraft that's an anti-grav or a Northrop Grumman facility. There are different places where I went, and these would then target them to hit them to see how hardened they were against that kind of EMP attack. But they are also used for tracking ET craft and knocking them down. And this one site I was over, the operator, his senior operator there, in whose helicopter I was flying, along with the director of a sensitive intelligence group that I'll talk about in a moment, who was in the back seat. I was in the front, pilot. And he explained to us that that's about once or twice a year, just that one site knocks down an extraterrestrial vehicle. And of course, then he helps in the process of retrieving and the bodies as well as the airform, the craft itself. So
this is New Mexico, I'm assuming.
No, sir.
Okay. But one of the desert states, probably next
Yes.
to it. Okay.
Yeah. But, one of the fun things is for people to go on the map. We have a black site map in the archive, and I think it's 152 or 155 sites now. We keep adding to them. So what we do as we get intelligence firsthand from these sort of sources, we put it on a map, and then we have a little explanation of what's there, what's been operational. Or if there's an event, some of them are episodic. In other words, a craft went down, it was taken to Fort Hood, and here's the case, and here's how it happened. Others were permanent sites. And the big ones, of course, people have heard about Edwards Complex. They've heard about, Nellis. They've heard about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Most people haven't heard about Dugway, Utah, the Dugway Proving Grounds, which is a state-of-the-art facility. And we have a whistleblower from there who has joined with our team and helped our illustrators draw what that underground facility looks like there. It's a huge facility.
Wow.
And also where some of the above ground. So all that is in the archive.
Okay.
So this is basically about $20 million in work we've done over 34 years that were given to the public. Say, here it is. Now we're also giving it to the members of Congress and military office of the White House and the House Oversight Committee people. But so far, none of those people have a staff to really do a deep dive into this. They don't have a select committee that's been stood up. That's what we've been asking for. And unfortunately, I found out about a month ago that the House Oversight Committee is going to be denied select committee status and funding or subpoena power. And this is, of course, not good news. And it's happened because of some bad actors who are in the House who have blocked it. And I know who they are. All right. We can get into that in a moment.
Okay.
So,
and Edwards is in California, right? And then Area 51 is in New Mexico. And I'm guessing maybe you were...
that's in Nevada.
Oh, Nevada.
Area 51 is Nevada. Mm-hmm.
And maybe you were in Utah, perhaps. And then there's New Mexico. But
I go all over. So
okay.
In other words, this gets into sources and methods. I have to be careful.
Yeah.
this particular team, the reason this is so important, if the Congress and the president don't act, there are two alternative disclosure pathways. One, we've just done. We've released everything I have, except the things that I cannot release right now. But it's plenty. It's more than you would get ever from a congressional hearing. But number two, the other pathways are, number one, the group that's organizing to break away, who are currently operational in these illegal projects. And they know what they're doing is unsanctioned by the government. But they're ultimately patriots, and they're horrified at what they're doing, to be honest with you. I mean, emotionally shaken. So, and they've been in this system for 20, 25 years, some of them, it's particularly the senior guys that I'm working with. The other pathway, and I've introduced these two leaders, is a law enforcement strike force that's been being stood up that would hit all these sites under domestic laws of the places where illegal activity is happening. Now, so far, they've not become operational. It's in its organizational form. But a big announcement, this is the first time I can say this on your show, effective June 20th, so a week from tomorrow, a group that's operating under SAP, a special access project, has been authorized to provide protection to any and all whistleblowers who want to come forward. Now, this is a very big deal. We've been asking for this since the Clinton administration, and it has just been, finally, a group is organized to do it. So that will be effective June 20th. And what that means is someone can come forward, named or anonymous or confidential, give their information, and they will be protected, monitored, and any threats that would come their way, a criminal file will be opened, and the people threatening them will be prosecuted. So I cannot say what agency in the United States that is operating under. I've been asked not to. It's highly classified. It's operating under top secret special access project status, but I'm working with those folks, and that is now activated as of next week.
Wow, that's a huge development.
It's huge, yeah.
And your dead men file, I would assume, has information that might reveal the identities of some of the people in the cabal or the activities, and so then they leave you alone because they don't want that potential exposure. Am I getting that probably right?
That's part of it. Who they are, how they operate, where they're located.
Okay.
And many of them, quite a few of them I've met with.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Do they know that you know?
They tried to turn me.
And they know that you know?
Oh, of course they know I know.
Okay.
And they know what I have. I mean, there's nothing hidden, but there's information that is so shocking. And, you know, a little bit over the years I've talked about, you know, like when the head of Army Intelligence offered me in 1992, $2 billion in illegally gotten black funds from the fall of the Soviet Union to defect, be part of their little clique of goose-stepping freaks. And I turned that aside. I said, I'm uninterested. But, you know, we know who those people are and how that whole system runs and how the money is moved around. By the way, there's a whole section in the archive on just the black budget and all of that. And there's a lot to be added. Let me point out, this is a quasi-emergency release of this archive. It's not finished. And the reason we did it before every, you know, T is crossed and I is dotted is because the speed at which not the U.S. government, Congress, but these other two initiatives are moving. They're more aggressive, and we feel that the public and also staff members and people at the National Security Council and Senate Intelligence, Armed Services, House Oversight, they need all this information to the extent they have time to go through it. Now, one thing we've spent a great deal of time and money creating is a searchable archive. All this had to be put into a database. Then it had to be coded, custom coded. The website had to be custom built. And we're still working out some bugs with it. So, be patient, but it's the best we can do with our limited staff.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's a huge development. We're going to have a link below so people can go there. Also, there's a crowdfunding platform to help you support the cost it takes to host it and everything else you're doing. So we'll allow
yes,
people
I want to point out, the only reason it's free is that we have had some benefactors do some startup support. But the way this works, folks, the more people who are using it, and it's huge how many people are getting in there, we get charges from the Amazon cloud and from a lot of other vendors to provide that. So there's no such thing as a free launch. So we are crowdfunding it, just like Wikipedia has to be funded. We have external costs separate from our own staff that are quite high. We're just hosting something this vast that people can peruse for free. So if you can support the crowdfunding, we very much appreciate it.
Dr. Greer, let me ask you a question. It looks like we have a potential of a new president coming into office in November/January. Well, what's the possibility that Trump comes in and, calls you up and says, we want to get to the bottom of this. We want to expose all of this. First of all, how much power does he have to do that? I've heard you talk before about how Trump and Pence were given some misinformation, disinformation about the process when they were in power, and then maybe relate that back to these people in Congress that are currently blocking the setup of this subcommittee.
Yes, it's a very important question. The likelihood is 99%. Okay, because many people on both presidential candidates' teams are working with me at a very high level. But in terms of the former president, it's a 50-50 coin toss, as you know, in any of these elections lately. But yes, we do know, because of some close friends of Mr. Pence and Trump, that they were approached by people who provided a false flag level of disinformation to them. Now, they provided some information that was legitimate. And the best disinformation is always coded. It's like a poison pill. It tastes sweet on the outside. On the inside, it's poison. And, if you're a real estate developer or a former governor of Indiana or a former senator like Mr. Obama or Mr. Biden, you're not going to know what's in these illegally run black projects. And it's very easy to gaslight them and deceive them. So what we try to do is to be a counterbalance to that, because we're non-governmental and we're nonpartisan. And so our only interest is getting the truth to the people, the general public, but also to these leaders who have been deceived for, all the way back to the Eisenhower term. Now, in the case of Mr. Trump, we know for a fact that he was, unfortunately, really provided some virulent disinformation, particularly about the threat proposed by the extraterrestrials, which is a false flag from start to finish. I mean, any common sense scientist would know civilizations that advanced, if in fact they were hostile, it would have been all over in 1945 when we detonated the first atomic weapon. And that, by the way, sent out an electromagnetic pulse that had attached to it a scalar signal that rips the fabric of trans-dimensional space-time for communication and travel. That's why the ET showed up in such large numbers, because it's actually disruptive to that level of physics, which we can talk about if it may be not appropriate for your audience. But what I'm saying is these presidents are sitting ducks, or in the very tightly compartmented world of special access projects and top secret special compartment information. Who are they going to turn to? Well, it's the foxes in the hen house who would know about this, and they're going to provide almost always, they'll either deny access altogether, like they did to Clinton and Carter and some others, or they're going to gaslight them the way they did President Reagan and Trump. So this is a fundamental problem that I've known about since 1993, when I briefed the director of the CIA for Bill Clinton. and realized that he wasn't joking when he said, I don't have access to these projects, and neither does the president. And I found out more recently from a source who signed a letter, a statement, testimony to this, that Clinton was also threatened for looking into this by George H.W. Bush. And so, who, by the way, was a member of this group, organized to keep this secret. And so I think, what I try to do very honestly in the time I have with figures like this, whether it's a senator or congressman or whoever, is to do an executive briefing, but then put together a package. Like if you go to my place in DC, you'll see the black books for President Obama and Trump and some of the past presidents sitting there because they're out of office. And that's been provided to them. But it's the tip of a big iceberg. And the subject, to be honest with you, Brian, is so complex and Byzantine that it takes a lot to get through all the noise to get to the sound. Because there's, I would say, for every bit of information that's out there, there are 10 parts of disinformation. And so that's a very difficult thing to sift through. And if you're new to this, which all these members of Congress are, you're at a huge disadvantage. So what I try to be is sort of a guide or a Sherpa through the wilderness for these folks who often are desperate to know what the truth is. But in the case of Trump, he was gaslit because they wanted to stand up to Space Force. They presented it as a threat. I know Pence, members of his close inner circle of friends are on my team, and they told me what he was briefed on and told, and they knew he was being gaslit. But that can lead to huge policy mistakes, up to and including targeting and destroying extraterrestrial assets. Now, this is an existential threat to world peace. So, and yet it isn't like there's some vast conspiracy of people. Most of the time, someone like President Reagan or Mr. Trump or whoever, they're just acting on the best intelligence they can get. And so I think it behooves the public, all of us, to try to gather the truth and put it in front of them. So that's what this archive does, actually. Now, one thing that's going to be added that I've already done, but it hasn't been transcribed, are what I call the intelligence assessments for each of the 13 categories of the archive, where I connect all the dots and do the overall assessment. Because information is not knowledge and knowledge isn't wisdom. So what we're working on is what would be the knowledge and the wisdom and connecting the dots from an intelligence point of view of how each case is connected, how these compartment operations have evolved, where they exist, where does the money come from. You can't get that from a document. You can get it from some of the top secret witness testimony. But what I tried to do is synthesize that intelligence. I kind of hold it in my head and then connect all these millions of dots into an assessment. And that is the hardest thing to do, frankly. And that's we're working on that right now. It is not in the archive yet because it was based on, I didn't have time to write it all out. And I, of course, had been injured. So I did a presentation to a group of people beginning last summer before I was injured with some of the special forces guys, the Green Berets and others supporting our effort. But then I did another event for a whole week. Those are being rewritten, and it's going to be astonishing what's in there because they will provide hot links from my presentation to all the different, terabytes of data in this archive that'll connect those dots for people. And that's really what people are going to benefit most from, particularly if you're a lawmaker or, someone in government.
Dr. Greer, who's blocking the further funding of this in Congress?
Well, unfortunately, when we spoke, you remember we had done our National Press Club event, and that day the Senate Intelligence Committee unanimously passed out of committee, unanimous is unusual, a motion to provide amnesty and safe harbor for whistleblowers and some other provisions. It went through and was passed by the Senate. However, what happened in December, you have to do reconciliation between the House and the Senate on any bill, right? And in the House, there were two, quite frankly, bad actors. Mike Turner, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, whose district includes Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and Mike Rogers of the House Armed Services, both blocked that. And they have also been active in keeping the House oversight from having a select committee with subpoena power. And that's a problem. Now, I had told my folks who are in law enforcement that we will know them by their deeds. In other words, when something like this comes out of the Senate, which I'd begun working with much earlier than with the House members, like Mr. Burchett and Ms. Luna and Moskowitz and others, they were a couple years ahead of the House. And I said, once this comes out of the Senate, because those members of the Senate Intelligence Committee and Armed Services, they have a lot more information that we've been providing, for 2 or 3 years, more like 3 years. So we knew that we'll see who stands up, because, the purse strings, as they say, is controlled by the House. They are the ones in charge of funding. And so ultimately, those provisions were ripped out of the National Defense Authorization Act in December. And subsequently, they've been blocking the formation of this House Oversight Select Committee that would be staffed with investigators, would have subpoena power, and so forth. And to be honest with you, without subpoena power, you're really completely almost neutralizing any House hearing, because the most important whistleblowers that I have that are direct firsthand, I don't mean secondhand people like, Mr. Grush. I'm talking about direct firsthand folks who have worked on the craft, who've flown them, who know about the man-made ones, who know about the crash retrievals, have been part of those programs, on and on and on. They don't want to come forward unless they get subpoenaed. All right. And it's under some formal process like that, as opposed to just voluntarily coming forward. So you're losing 90+% of your intelligence sources that we have without a subpoena. And unfortunately, I just found out from meetings up at the House with Congressman Burchett and some others that, in fact, that has been stopped, and he was not hopeful that they would get those powers, which means it becomes even more important for the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive to be disseminated globally, and also for these other operations to get stood up. But unfortunately, these other operations would basically bypass the Congress and the White House because they would move quickly. Now, the first putting their toe in the water for the law enforcement end of this is extending this protection to witnesses, witness protection for whistleblowers on the UAP UFO issue. And people have asked me about that for years. If you go through the archive, you'll see that's a formal request made to President Clinton in, I think, 1994 or 5, like literally 30 years ago. So, and now we have it. So I tell people, this has been an ultra marathon for me. I started this effort when I was 34, and this month I turned 69. So it's been a journey.
Well, congratulations on that effort, and that's a big deal. I think you briefly made a reference to man-made UFOs earlier, and for people that maybe missed our first episode, they might be thinking, what the heck is that? Because I think that phrase maybe really cuts through to your thesis of what's out there. So could you explain that to someone who doesn't understand what that means?
Sure. I would say 70 to 80% of all UFO sightings are highly classified Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Skunk Works. Let's unpack that for a minute. We know, and we can prove, there's a whole section of the archive on crash retrievals. I think we're now up to 120 or 30 that we have documented. Many of them are illustrated. Many of the cases you'll see have named witnesses who were present at the retrieval. Those are in the archive. We released all of it. Now, we also know through black budget, the section of the archive on the black budget, trillions of dollars have gone into this. I mean, no less a figure than Donald Rumsfeld. We have the videotape of him saying the day before 9/11 that there are $2.3 trillion unaccounted for in the Department of Defense budget. Unaccounted for is a polite way of saying just flat out stolen. No auditors can find it. And so when you combine those two data points, retrieval of advanced extraterrestrial vehicles with that kind of clandestine and illegal funding in the trillions of dollars, you add one more element. And this is the most important element, the brain trust. I would say the physicists and the engineers that have the highest IQ I have ever met on Earth are working in underground bases or in these programs. They are absolutely brilliant. Often they're plucked out of high school or college. I mean, I will tell you right now, the most brilliant people in those fields are not writ large at MIT or Caltech or Harvard. They just aren't. I mean, academia is where we kind of dump mediocre bright people, not these kinds of people. But, I mean, no offense to anybody, but it's true.
Do you think that people, because I went to MIT and if I told my professors, these thoughts about anti-gravity, they would, look at me funny. Do you think at that point in time, those people are so brainwashed into the classical science that they couldn't even get their head around this? Do you actually have to bring people in earlier in their career? Is that one of the reasons?
Absolutely. By the time you get your master's or PhD, you're steeped in the orthodoxy and you're in that box, unless you're a true scientist. Now, let me define a true scientist. A true scientist is searching for the truth, and they will go where it leads them. And that's true whether the situation with what happened with COVID or with this or anything else. You're going to go to where the facts are. You're not going to be prejudiced with your preconceived beliefs. That is not a scientist. So a genuine scientist will look at the facts and will go where the facts are and is open to discovery. But I always tell people, look, I'm a medical doctor and emergency and trauma and all that. We're scientists second. We're humans first. And so humans have their foibles and the ego and the tendency to get blinders put up and have prejudices against things that you think just cannot be true. And that's true of journalists and politicians and all humans. So, and it's true of scientists. People think that scientists somehow aren't human because they're scientists. No, they have all the failings and frailties of humans, which we all are. And so we all have those frailties and failings. And so if you're a true scientist, it's a constant effort to do a check and balance on that and say, am I not looking at this correctly because of my preconceived biases? But most scientists are not quite that objective. And I think that's why many of the brilliant scientists that I have worked with and know, their files, some of them are in this archive, but their names are redacted unless they've approved the release. Now, just so you know, you'll see a lot of blacked out names and information. It's because if someone has said, we want you to have this information, but I don't want to have to be in the public spotlight or risk my family's life or whatever, that name is removed and their cell number or their social security, or if they have a DD-214, their discharge form from the military, those are all scrubbed. It's taken us a year to scrub that, but you'll see what they said. You'll see my correspondence with them. You'll see what I wrote, what they wrote back. Now, I mean, it would take you years to get through all this, but it's an enormous amount of information, and we've released all of it.
Wow, that's a huge move that you put that out there. And so just to conclude, that man-made UFO technology was derived from the technology we learned from the aliens. And since we've now mastered that, you're saying 70-80% of what we see is actually that man-made UFO.
Sure. And, when I talked to the pilot, David Fravor, about his, chasing that object off the coast of California that's been all in the media, we immediately knew it was a Lockheed object. It was not. And she couldn't believe it. He says, we don't have anything like that. I said, sir, with all due respect, you were read into jet engines, maybe rockets. You know, you were not, these are deep black projects that have been going on since the 40s. And I always tell people an astonishing date, October 1954 is the date that we mastered gravity control. We had craft that were experimental, that were kind of wobbly. You look at some of the old high 8 movies and you see the craft, they look like a falling leaf. Those were ours that were not stable. The gyro, the stability of the system wasn't stable. And I can look at a videotape from the 40s, 50s, say, that's one of ours, that they had not stabilized the guidance system on it. But I have a man who was the top scientist at the Naval Research Labs, the largest defense lab in the world, there in DC. And his name was Rick Foch. He's passed away. He was in the vault and saw the documents where we had mastered and finally controlled gravity control, it was called, October 1954. So remember, if you look at the testimony and the evidence we have from Brad Sorensen about what was called the ARV, the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, all that material is in the archive. That's a whole section. And that was built in the late 50s, early 60s, and had scorch marks on it. It was on an air show at Norton Air Force Base. And this whole account is in there, including excellent artist renderings of this object and schematics and a blueprint of what it was in the interior. And that was man-made. And it had moved all through the solar system. And this was before my uncle, who helped work on the lunar module, landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong. He was Northrop Grumman his whole career. Put that first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. This would have been in the late 50s, early 60s. So there's a whole history to unpack, aerospace history, that James Goodall and others have now acknowledged and gotten information from Ben Rich, the head of the Skunk Works, that we had these objects. So if you have them and they're used in a deceptive operation, everyone's going to go, oh, that's an alien craft. Well, it isn't. And same thing with all of the abductions. Those have been man-made, staged events for their, quote, psychological warfare value. How do we know this? We have direct testimony from Air Force intelligence. We have documents. We have an entire dossier from Martin Cannon, who documented this in the 80s. And we have Jacques Vallée, Dr. Jacques Vallée, admitting in a 1992 entry in a book that he wrote that he had a 1985 document that is an official document of the CIA. I know 2 other people who have it, where it says they were committing alien abductions using man-made UFOs with stagecraft, where they use creatures that look alien, but they're not. It's robotics or humans made up to look like an ET in Brazil and Argentina. And it says, quote, for their psychological warfare value. Now, go back 30 years to 1953, and I have a document from the director of the CIA that's in the archive that says, and it was a psychological warfare board meeting, and it was saying the psychological warfare value of the UFO issue. Excuse me, I got a thing in my throat. Should be exploited. Well, that was in 53, a year before they knew they were going to be close to getting these operational man-made UFOs. And so they started a whole program of deception and gaslighting so that people would know, is it real or is it Memorex, like the old commercial for the tapes? You know, is it ours? Is it theirs? And this has obfuscated the UFO research on this issue, but it's also created a mythology around the subject that supports a false narrative, which Werner von Braun, who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler, warned Carol Rosin, who's on our team, on his deathbed, that we would stage a threat from outer space to try to create a global unification around a military threat rather than peace. And that was concocted way back in the 50s. He told her that in 1974, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I distinctly remember from our last conversation you saying that if it ever comes about that we are being invaded globally by an alien force.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, do you want to profit from crypto? Then join my DeFi Academy. The Crypto DeFi Academy will help you create generational wealth. But don't take my word for it. Listen to my students.
When I first got into crypto, I remember thinking to myself, I need to learn more. Brian Rose, learning crypto, learning DeFi, gotta do it.
I am so grateful that I jumped in and did this. I had to break through some limiting beliefs that I can do this, that I can afford this, that I can be in this.
It challenges the things that are deeply rooted within us.
Joining DeFi Academy has been one of the best decisions I have made on my blockchain journey.
This course was a life changer, a game changer, a huge eye-opener, coming from knowing practically nothing at the speed of the learning over 4 weeks was just fantastic.
The information you provided in this class was invaluable.
I feel far more confident in my next steps.
You took complex concepts and made them easier to understand.
What's different than so many other ones is it just doesn't tell you what to do. It actually makes you do it.
This is for people who are serious about becoming traders. This is the way it should be done.
I realized from this learning experience again that it is not about what you learn, but about who you learn it from.
The energy was insane. I've never experienced such incredible energy on a live call. Brian Rose, you are a legend, my friend.
It's the only thing in the market where you can get all information and learn everything what you need to know.
Everything is so clear and so well done, and I am just forever grateful for this program.
It made me feel so much more confident about crypto than I did before.
I did not anticipate how passionate I was going to become about it.
It's also been like a big learning experience for me, not just in the crypto space, but just an overall balance of life.
What I've learned is, how to take ownership, of my life in a way that I really hadn't before.
Yeah, you can't put a price on that, really.
I would recommend it to anybody, top notch.
Excellence does not come cheap. So if you want excellence, you got to pay for it, but it's so worth it.
Pull the trigger. That's what this course is about.
You're not going to regret it, really. It's amazing.
Thank you, Brian and team.
So what are you waiting for? Crypto is happening now. Click the link below, submit your application, and let me mentor you on how to create generational wealth and build the decentralized financial infrastructure of the future.